Hello, Briat. Yet another day.
Yes, yes. How's it that side?
You know, it's getting a bit much. I thought this was going to be easy for me, but yeah, it's a little bit of work actually.
Hmm.
I live alone, so you know, it's a lot. So, Mister, today we talked about you know, having there's a lot of fallacy and misunderstanding around karma, and being able to explore what karma is and maybe taking a little the mystery out of it for people, and also being able to look at what the use of understanding karma is. So where would you like to start in regards to exploring karma?
I think a simple definition is a good start. That the word karma, it's a Sanskrit word, and it can be defined in different ways according to the context in which it's used in. Sanskrit is often like that, like a word actually contains more of an energy and or principle, and according to how it's used, the context, you know, they manifest according to the circumstance, the time, place, and the circumstance. But the karma as a word, it means action, it means work. It also refers to the principle of cause and effect. So the same word
Yep.
can be used in a bit of different ways. Generally, people have the notion that karma is talking about cause and effect. What you put out is what you get. If you put out bad, then that's what you get bad. If you put out good, then you get good. Um,
Okay.
and that, yeah, so that's generally the accepted notion of karma. Something happens to
So
you.
talk a little bit about action and work. So cause and effect, you put out good, you get good, you put out bad, you get bad.
Mm.
The action and work portions is what is describe that a little bit.
Yeah, it's that by anything you do, even if you sit down and do nothing, that's also considered action. You're still doing something. It's not
Yes.
possible to do nothing. So,
Yes.
and by doing something, that means there's going to be an effect, and that's what karma
Okay.
is. Like whatever you do, whatever thought you have, that it has an effect and is going to have a reaction, or the reaction is the effect. So there's a cause and there's an effect, and that we're
Yeah.
performing
You're gonna get
different.
a result.
Yeah, we're putting energy into a project and we desire a certain result by those efforts, and we desire
Yes.
success, or we are putting work in and we desire to get paid, and then we want to get paid. So
Yes.
it's genuinely the notion. So when you talk about karma, it's also usually um, translated as fruitive activity. Means an activity from which you desire to harvest some fruit from. Fruitive activity. I like that also. And then also everything that you
Okay.
do, like in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that in this material world, every single endeavor is always covered by some fault. Like fire is always covered by smoke. So it's not possible to do something without a fault, without there being some kind of fault in there. And that
Okay.
also implies that there'll be some reaction for that also. So karma is actually an extremely complicated thing, and it's not actually possible to trace back which activity caused which reaction you're receiving, because if you do 1, 2, 3, the reaction that you're getting is not necessarily going to come in the sequence 1, 2, 3. They can mix together
Yes.
and come as one event, or they can be separated by a lot of time. Yeah,
Yes.
they don't necessarily have to
And
come.
also some surprising outcomes,
Mm,
which you're calling faults. There can be undesired and unexpected
yeah.
results out of all of your actions. So
Mm,
always being prepared for that. There's something else that's going to be coming with this.
yeah. Like you think you're doing one thing, but actually you're doing something else. And then when you get the result of that something else, you're wondering like, why did I get that? Because I actually wanted this. But you don't
Yes.
know that
So
what
what
you
did I
did
do
was actually
wrong?
not what
What
you're
are the things
supposed to
people
do.
do? What did I do wrong?
Yeah,
God isn't listening. The world is a horrible place. Self-doubt. There's a whole bunch of stuff that comes up with that when, when we're talking about expectation. Sometimes it's a fault. Sometimes it's an expectation that's having an effect on what it is that you're creating. So yes, it is very complex. There's a lot of levels to what's actually going on there. Um,
and action is also
Anything else?
likened to planting a seed, because by whatever action you're doing, you're planting a seed, and from that seed a tree will grow, and then from that tree there will be fruit, and then you will have to go and reap the fruit from that tree. So
Yes.
that means whatever action you perform, that means you have to remain in this universe, in this material creation, to harvest the results of what you did, which implies that there's to be another life you have to come back for. Even if everything you did was only good, you means you have to take another birth in order to come and get the fruits of that result. So this is what karma is. And karma also can be used to mean good action. And then the word vikarma is meant, it means bad action or negative action.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, or action
So,
to produce a result which is undesirable, or it'll make you suffer. Which is actually, this is what the word sin means. It actually means destructive activities, self-destructive activities, because they produce a reaction which will harm yourself. That's actually what sin means. It's not just some rule a person made up that things you're not supposed to do. It's actually something that if you do it, it's going to harm you because it's going to come back and bite you. And then you get the word akarma, which means no action, which means you're doing something, but it's not action. And in the Bhagavad Gita,
yes.
and that's quite a nice concept. I like that. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that only one who's able to see action in inaction and inaction in action, only such a person actually sees things as they are. And what that means is that if by force you make yourself do nothing, you sit down by your process of discipline, whatever that may be, you completely stopping the mind and all sensory activities, that is actually still action. But a person
Okay.
who is working for a spiritual cause, for their own spiritual emancipation and also for the spiritual upliftment of others, that person is actually not performing any action, even though it looks like they're working just like an ordinary man. But because the result of that action is transcendental, it's spiritual, therefore that is not action, because action means material. And that kind of action
Okay.
is
So,
transcendental.
so yeah, there's two things I want to talk about, and that I think that you started explaining. One of them is that to be to not be making an impact on the world, and that you're going to have to come back and actually interact further, say, in reincarnation in another life, um, because you've put something out there that you need to go and respond to, is that what's neutral is service. So what you're saying is what's neutral is service, and when you are in service to, in a spiritual way, to all that is around you, you're not making any ripples. You're actually in the natural way of doing things, so you're not creating any karma for yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay, that one's new.
that's well put.
There, I,
I like
I
that.
learned something.
It is because in the Bhagavad Gita they say that a pious person, they perform positive activities, karma, not vikarma. But then such a person
Uh-huh.
will eventually realize. But the purpose of that is to try and become satisfied through engaging the senses with the results of activity, with the fruits of them, by enjoying those fruits. But as we know,
Yes.
these things do not satisfy us. No amount of money, no amount of fame, or beauty or any of these things are going to make you happy. So then the person
Yes.
think, okay, but if what's going to make me happy, then they start embarking on a spiritual journey and they realize that these things, these attachments actually are also causes of suffering. And then what they do is they still perform the same activity, but they direct all the fruits. Instead of eating the fruit, they give up the fruits. They give up the fruits for
Yeah.
some spiritual cause. And the analogy given is that when you have a fruit and you eat it, you end up with a handful of seeds, which means from those seeds another tree is going to grow and more fruit, and you take another birth. But if you give that fruit
Okay.
away, then there's no seeds to grow into another tree. So in this way, you can
Ah.
untangle yourself from the, how do you say, the crow's nest of karma that we are entangled in by just offering, by becoming detached from the fruits of our work. And that's a very good stage. This is called karma yoga, where yoga meaning you connecting your activity, your action to source. Yoga means to connect to God. That's what yoga means. So you're connecting your activity to God, karma yoga. And then
Yes.
that will actually purify one's consciousness, and one will feel a sense of satisfaction. And then and as one gets purified, then one even then when one gets to the stage of devotion, then even though if you're performing action, the difference is you're not doing it because you want to do it anymore. Whereas with karma yoga, you're doing it because that's what you want, that's your desire, but you're giving up the result.
Yes.
Whereas with devotion, it's like you're just doing whatever is needed, separate from what your own desires might be, because you're acting simply for the benefit of the beloved, of your beloved, your
Just
person.
I just
Rumi.
sorry to interrupt. Is that just anybody that's listening that and hasn't listened to any of the other podcasts? Is that Briot has a young boy, and he's at the vocal stage, and he's fine.
Fine. He's reached
Okay.
the supersonic
So
frequency now.
so yeah. So I
Yes,
want to
backtrack a little bit, and just to summarize, just to make it maybe a bit more digestible for our listeners, is
yes.
um, that we want to get to the point where our activities are directed for a spiritual purpose and not directed towards our own senses and our own little micro environment to try and satisfy ourselves like that by our own arrangements, but instead offering them up for the spiritual welfare of the greater of for the greater good of people in general. And in that way we can become free from our attachments by giving up the fruits.
So so now I have three questions, three different lines of thought. So one is in the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about I am not the doer,
Mm.
and not looking to harvest the fruit of my labor. I'm not interested in the fruit of my labor.
Mm.
Can you speak about that a little bit?
It's an interesting point that you mentioned it. It's that what you're referring to is the verse that says Prakrita Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartam Iti Manyate. It says that the living entity, under the influence of the false ego, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by the modes of nature, which we also discussed in the previous podcast.
Uh-huh.
So this
Yeah.
idea of us being the doer is false. They actually carried out by the modes of nature, that we simply desire, and then according to our desire, but also according to what we deserve, which is the karma that we have, then material nature makes arrangements like that. And that even to lift your hand requires some superior sanctioning for it to happen. We're under the notion even, and this is now something I'm going to push to see, who will open up their consciousness to let this idea in, is that you are not the one lifting your hand. You simply desire to lift your hand. That there's a superior force which actually lifts your hand. So anyway, I'll leave that as
Okay.
might be very far out for some people. Um,
Yeah.
so be that as
So, and the way that I look at I'm not the doer is that I didn't create myself. I didn't create my skills. I didn't
Mm.
create my gifts. I didn't. I'm not the creator of myself. I discover myself.
Yeah.
Creation created me, and
Mm.
for me, it's a discovery.
Mm.
So I'm not the doer in that. I didn't. If I'm aligned with what my, what my gifts are, and that I get to be the expression of that, but I'm
Mm.
not the creation of that.
Yeah.
So that I'm able to I'm gifted with being a gift. I'm gifted with actually being conscious and being the character that I am and having the interests that I do, etc. So I'm not the doer in the sense of that I didn't create myself.
Mm.
And then not taking part in, like, when you're not interested in the fruits of your labor is like you were saying, of being neutral in um, that in being in service, is that you're not interested in cultivating things for you, for ego, and these are the things that I created and these are my desires. I'm actually seamlessly interacting with life where I'm not looking to create fruits to my labor, and there's something natural about how I'm behaving. Because how do you, like, I know that you eat lovely food. I know that you share a hug with your children or your wife.
Mm.
There's things that are like, you don't abstain from these things.
Mm.
Where's the line between not creating karma and being in service and getting something for yourself? It's just not austere.
Okay. That's a nice
How do
question.
you how do you,
Yeah.
the value, like,
It's a
how do
nice,
you
yeah.
how have you set up your values?
So my conviction is, I think it starts there. Is just acknowledging the truth of a situation. Is that these are not my children. This is not my wife, and I'm not this body. And these are just spirit souls who have inhabited different bodies, and we're just playing these roles now according to the bodies we have and the relationship between the bodies. So,
Yes.
but now, since I'm playing the role of a father, then also that means I have a responsibility as a father to my children. And part
Yes.
of fulfilling my obligation, that means they have needs I need to fulfill. So, which means there's love and affection has to be there. But it's not like coming from a headspace where it's like, okay, they need love. Okay, it's time to give them love now. Okay, so I give them a hug. It should really come from the heart, which is a natural thing to come. It's natural, which is another thing. We were talking
Yes.
about dharma the other day. That dharma is a natural, intrinsic quality or nature of something. So it's just natural for a mother or a father to have affection for the children, and it's actually the duty to be affectionate and raise them like that. But now, the
Yes.
meditation, or where the value comes in, is that not getting bewildered by those exchanges and starting to think, this is my child, he belongs to me. Because that's when you identify with your body. But you can do that while all the time remembering that this is actually not my child. This is very hard to do because the nature of these relationships really draw your consciousness in, which is fine. But if you have a strong daily
Absolutely.
practice, you can always be anchored into that spiritual reality while operating with these kind of external things. And it won't detach you from your spiritual understanding. Even you might forget it, and I oftentimes do. I still get angry, and sometimes when my kids are naughty. But um, but never a day goes by when I do not remember that what the situation actually is. That this is a temporary situation. These are just different actors playing these roles, and we're just going to do our best to play our part. Because I made a choice to get married and have children. So now I have a responsibility. So now I have to do that. Even though I'm not the doer, I am the one who desired it. And by desiring this has happened, now I have to take responsibility. And this is my responsibility I take. So in that way, I can still love them. I can still appreciate them and enjoy them in a sense. And at the same time, I can also be detached because my children might not grow up to be the people I would like them to be. They could grow up to be the biggest rascals ever. You know, there's no telling. Even if I do everything perfectly, they might still become nonsense. You know? So I have to be detached. I can't control that outcome. All I can do is do the best I can do and perform my duty and my responsibility properly, and then just accept whatever outcome might come and not be attached to that. So then, and you can't do that if you think you're this body and if you think that these children are mine, then you cannot be detached from this outcome, which
Okay.
will also be a good indicator.
So the question that I have is, can't do that if you think you're this body. So the question that I have is, when you are being your dharma, you're being the nature that you are, you're being the gift that you are, and that fatherdom, there's a very natural role that you're playing as father. So where, where does the line of, because, I enjoy hugging my children. I enjoy, my wife. I enjoy the food that I'm having. Where do you, where's the line
Ah,
between what's my desire? There's a natural dharma acting,
mm,
and there's my desire. And when my desires start showing themselves, where I'm able to, I want a hug from my child, and
yeah,
a lot of people want, they want their, you understand what I'm saying, is
yes,
that they want things, their desires are mixed in with these roles,
yeah,
and being able to determine what is, your natural role as your dharma, and what is your desire.
mm.
What has been your experience of that? How are you sorting that?
Well, since I am in a conditioned state, that means it's natural that there'll be a mixture of material desires in everything I do, and the nature of,
Yes.
particularly of being married with children, the arrangement is made to squeeze that out and to reveal it to you very quickly, like where your mixture of desires are, and then gradually you can kind of work on them and become detached. But I would also say, if by what you're doing, performing your daily activities and your duties, enjoyment comes as a natural result of that, just like the stress will come as a natural result of that. Without me having to do something, my kid's going to scream and it's going to give me a headache, which it does. And
Yes.
at the same time, without me doing anything, he's going to be flippant cute, and that's going to give me enjoyment because he does that too.
Yes.
So, in other words, if I'm doing something to enjoy it, then that's not correct. But if you're just doing it, what you need to do, and just enjoying the enjoyment that comes from itself, that's okay. It's like when you're eating, you have to eat good food, make yourself healthy. And when you eat, you're going to enjoy it because it's good food. But if you eat simply
Yes.
for the enjoyment, you're going to develop some eating disease. You're going to become obese. You might
Okay.
get diabetes. You're not eating, you're losing your intelligence, eating too much sugar, whatever. So, but you need to eat
Yeah.
and you can enjoy it when it happens. So
Yeah,
that,
that line right there of when you're, what you just said there is a line that was really useful to people, is being
yeah,
able to go,
it's
okay, when
okay to
I'm
enjoy.
just enjoying moment and just enjoying the food and just enjoying my family or whatever it is,
Yeah,
and I don't have any expectation for it, and I'm not creating situations where I can, distill from the moment and the interaction my desires and the things that I want.
mm,
I'm actually just acting naturally, and the satisfaction and enjoyment that I get naturally is what I'm doing. And then, being able to keep an eye on, that's a very subtle thing for most
very
people. They
subtle.
don't actually realize how much that they're putting into to be able to distill, satisfaction of the senses from situations. So that's a really great distinction. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's really nice, and it's helped me a lot. It's helped me a lot in my reflection and to see where I'm at, and also when that enjoyment naturally comes, it's actually, if we will kind of make a further distinction, that type of enjoyment that comes when you're just doing what you need to is more of an appreciation than an enjoyment. It's not coming out of the
Uh-huh.
mentality to enjoy, it's coming out of the mentality to serve, but you're appreciating all the goodness that's in there, and then that's enjoyment.
Yes.
That's proper enjoyment. But at the same time, not
Yeah.
being under the illusion that this so-called enjoyment is going to be a source of my happiness, because now immediately I put it on another person or on something outside of myself has to make me happy, and immediately in that point you've identified with your body and your suffering has actually begun. And to be stay
Yes.
at that point where you can be, it's like one foot in the spiritual realm, one foot in the material realm, and that you do what you need to do,
Yes.
have this physical existence. Let's engage it in a constructive way. But at the same time, let me not forget who I really am, is that somebody who exists independently of this body.
Yes, I think that's a beautiful distinction of being able to, it points to that your connection needs to be with self and knowing yourself, and that there's a deeper experience of your connection with you and the connection with self to all that is. And in your case, devotion in service.
Yeah.
And that as opposed to what most people are doing is setting up their life to be able to have little sensory rewards to be able to get through the next, bit, recess, coffee break, lunchtime, dinner,
Yeah.
family time, intimate time. All of these things are being able to, that I'm deriving my ability to sustain my happiness on this planet and the way things are, because life is difficult. Life isn't easy, and society isn't easy. So most people have set their life up that way, and that there's a couple downsides to that. As soon as you set your happiness up to something that's outside of yourself, you are it can be taken away. Number one.
You're setting
Number two,
yourself
that
up
it's
for a
not
bad
real.
time. Then you're setting yourself up for a bad time if you do that.
Yes, and that is 90-some% of the population, if not, so that's what people are doing. Just one last thing, one last concept. Is there anything that you can say, because this is more the meat and potatoes of karma, of what people might be asking or interested in, is the cause and effect. So can you say anything more about the cause and effect experience of karma, of what you're putting out? When we talked about if you put out good, you get good, and you put out bad, you get bad. A little bit more detail about how that works, so people go, oh, okay, I get that. So
yeah, it's a basic law of physics, is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So you're putting out a particular energy, and then that same energy is going to come back in the exact opposite direction to you. And since you're like the center of your little universe, whatever you put out is going to come back to that center and affect you. So that means that whatever we're experiencing is because we're just receiving something that we sent out at some point in time in our existence. So, which I think is also actually really nice, I think, logical progression from that, is that why do good things happen to bad people is because they did bad things at some time. Oh, but this person, he never did anything bad in his life. Okay, yeah, but what about his previous life? Otherwise, how come something bad could be happening if this law is there, that equal and opposite reaction? So,
well, bad things happen to monks that spent most of their life, if not all of it, in service. I'm thinking about like your average person. There's definitely thought processes that they've had in this lifetime
yes.
that has gone out and is coming back.
Yeah.
So I want to underline something there, is that the universe is very well designed to whatever you're putting out, so that you can, you can't see anything in a vacuum. So it's very well organized that whatever you're putting out gets reflected back to you, so you can actually see what
Yes.
you're putting out. And that also patterns, like whatever people don't deal like internally. If I don't deal with my experiences of lack, and or my experiences of seeing lack in other people in some kind of way, if I don't deal with that internally, then you externalize it, and that your world is constantly giving you, depending on how much you're putting out and how long the universe decides what you need to see at any given time. If you're having a constant pattern of externalized negative experience where people or situations keep happening again and again, that's really having you look at what it is that you're thinking, feeling, and putting out is what's being reflected back at you. And it's a really interesting system. If we weren't getting that reflection, you wouldn't really know what you're putting out.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way to learn, is that, what are my patterns? What's happening to me? What's being handed back to me? What's being reflected to me? So that you can actually start looking at, because the change you're going to need to make is in here.
Yeah.
And in here.
And
So
the only
anything
way
else
that
you have
you'll
to
be
say
able
about
to
that?
look at it, the only way that you'll be able to look at it like that is if you are humble.
In what way?
Well, if you are humble, then if you're not humble, you won't be able to see events in your life as being reflections of what you've
You
put.
won't even look.
No, you won't even look. Your immediate instinct will just be to write it off as somebody else's fault, God's fault, or some other person's fault, or
Yes, there we go. I'm
manufacturer
a victim.
firm's fault.
I'm
Or
a victim in all this. People are horrible.
yeah, exactly. So we're at 30 minutes now.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's a great ending. And I really enjoyed this conversation. Is that you know, and I learned a couple things too, which was really nice to be able to see what your beliefs are, what it is that you're operating from, and to see what part of that I'm going to adopt, because it's quite interesting. So thank you very much once again, Briat,
right, Brian. I'm really enjoying these.
and we'll speak again tomorrow.
Yes, let's
Thank you
do
very
that.
much.
Bye. Thanks, Brian.
Bye bye.
All the best.
Love
Haribo.
and light.